the attempt has been to try and not duplicate what that commission has done without necessarily saying that the unit can't be mentioned here. You would have been, I assume, you would have read my ruling in relation to Mr. Moyane's application for leave to cross-examine Minister Gordon, where, at least at that stage, the issue of that unit was not to be covered, but there were certain developments that happened after that. So I mention these things because I am more inclined to grant leave to cross-examine to people who are accused of having been involved in state capture and corruption than people who simply say, I would like the opportunity to cross-examine this witness because he says I'm lying, or he's denying what I say he said. So for that kind of issue, my inclination is the evidence leaders of the commission play an adequate role to take care of that. That's my inclination. So having regard to that, and you may of course say, I've missed out something in thinking along the lines that I am thinking. In saying all of that, we have got to go back to the rules of the Commission in relation to applications such as this. And they provide that the chairperson may grant leave. I'm looking at Rule 3.7. In accordance with Regulation 8.3, there is no right to cross-examine a witness before the Commission, but the chairperson may permit cross-examination should it deem it necessary and in the best interest of the work of the Commission to do so. So, given where we are with the work of the Commission, wanting to wrap up, I've got to think about, among other things, why should we add more work when we're trying to wrap up? But obviously that has got to be balanced against the interests and rights of individuals. But also the public interest is quite important. So you might wish to address me on those thoughts.
Yes. I'm fully cognizant, Chairperson, of the time limitations and the time constraints that are on the Commission at this stage. It's correct that Mr. van Locherenberg is not accused of being a state capturer, and that, broadly speaking, the Nugent Commission, if I may refer to it as that, traversed some of that area, although it did not make fundamental findings, and in relation to that, it was essentially a concluding comment that said that, and I paraphrase at this stage, I see nothing wrong with the establishment of this unit. I see nothing wrong with what it did. If something illegal was done, that doesn't mean that the unit should have been disbanded. And it seems to me that it was a good thing that there was such a unit. That in a nutshell, is what Justice Nugent found. I also appreciate the fact that Mr. van Locherenberg has had his has had a hearing from you in relation to, inter alia, the unit's activities, and he's had his opportunity to present that evidence to you. And I also fully understand that if that's the Commission's evidence leaders are in a position to tease out any points of dispute. My view of my role today, when I was preparing in the short time that we had available, is that I would very much like to curtail my questioning of Mr. Moyane, were I to be given leave, to the events that occurred immediately after the Sunday Times report in October 2014. And you'll see from you'll see that there's a fairly lengthy setting out by Mr. van Lochrenberg in his affidavit in support of his application to cross-examine, which sets out a sequence of events where Mr. Moyane appeared, having just arrived as the Commissioner and having read the Sunday Times on the Sunday, to denounce this entire unit without further ado on the Monday by sending out a memorandum to the entire staff workforce at SARS, where he, on the face of it, took a side without further ado, and he admonished the members of the unit. What then transpired is that the members of the unit, some 6 of them, who were the remaining members at that stage, who were at work, sent a very, very detailed letter to Mr. Moyane, where they joined issue with the allegations that had been made. What happened was that a deaf ear was turned to that. They got no hearing. They got no. Their voice wasn't heard.
Well, and I'm sorry to interrupt you, Mr. Hutton. You see, some of the things that I've seen, I think, in Mr. van Lochrenberg's affidavit, and I don't know, I can't remember whether Mr. Simmington does the same, is raise issues that are really employer-employee kind of issues, you know, grievances about how Mr. Moyane dealt with certain issues. And while those have their place, and in regard to some matters, they have been quite important in the Commission, some of those issues have been quite important. But that has been limited to situations where there were allegations to the effect that this employee was being removed, for example, as part of state capture and so on and so on. But also my inclination in regard to the issue that you say you wish to limit your cross-examination to, my inclination would be subject to the evidence leader, what his view is in terms of whether he would include that issue in his questioning of Mr. Moyane. My inclination would be, why should that not be left to the evidence leader to deal with?
I understand the position that you're taking, Mr. Chairperson, and perhaps, this had certainly crossed my mind while I was preparing, that perhaps we had this the wrong way round today.
Yes.
And that my client's application for leave to cross-examine perhaps properly only arises once Mr. Moyane has given his evidence in chief and has been led by the
evidence leader.
And if at the end of that there are issues which are pertinent to the Commissioner, or at least that we believe on our side are pertinent and would properly be properly fall within the ambit of legitimate cross-examination of Mr. Moyane, not simply to test his credibility, but to advance the pursuit of truth. I'm sorry, I've just been advised that there's a technical problem, and we've been requested to stop for 10 minutes while the technical problem is resolved.
Okay, all right. Yeah, no, sometimes these technical problems start as we are trying to start, so they start. Okay, let's adjourn for 10 minutes. We adjourn.
Testing, 1, 2, testing, 2, testing, 1, 2, testing, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3.
as Mr. Moyane has been. There is one passage in Mr. Moyane's affidavit that runs against that contention. And I think the contention that Mr. van Lokkerenberg has not been involved in state capture as a participant is demonstrably correct. But Mr. Moyane, without mentioning Mr. van Lokkerenberg by name, but in the context that Mr. van Lokkerenberg was the head at all material times of this unit, he says the following in paragraph 31 of his affidavit, and that's SARS 03746 WW7 response 592. He says the following: more significantly and of relevance to the Commission is the fact that the unit clearly carried out extrajudicial and unlawful covert intelligence activities, thus creating a parallel intelligence service which was not accountable to any structure of Parliament. This surely amounts to the capture of the state or some significant parts thereof. So through that broad stroke,
Quite broad.
he does. But in that broad stroke, he accuses everyone who was a participant in the activities of the unit, whether going back to the foundation of the unit, the establishment of the unit, or through its lifespan. And of course, Mr. van Lokkerenberg was the commander of the unit, the manager of the unit for that relevant period. He is indeed accused of being a state capturer.
But maybe even if one had regard to that, given the totality of his affidavit and what appears to be the basis for his application, I would still be inclined to the view that it should be adequate if whatever information he wishes to be placed before the Commission, that one he himself has been able to deal with that in his evidence, but also that he can furnish to the evidence leader whatever perspectives or information that he requests should be pursued in the questioning of Mr. Moyane. Obviously, the evidence leader is not bound by that, but in his discretion can look at that and see whether he can put some questions relating to that. So my inclination would be that where he has been given a chance to give evidence and therefore refute whatever Mr. Moyane has to say, and two, Mr. Moyane will be subjected to questioning by the evidence leader. And in this regard, one remembers that the rules make it clear that the evidence leader is entitled to question a witness with a view to establishing the truth. That I would be more inclined to say, why don't he give the evidence leader whatever he wants to give him or draw his attention to, and then the evidence leader can cover as much as obviously in his discretion he needs to cover.
Can I just respond to one significant part of what you said, Mr. Chairperson?
Yes.
And it's this. As we stand today, Mr. van Lokkerenberg's evidence is incomplete.
Yeah.
Essentially, the Commission ran out of time on the previous occasion, had a late afternoon or evening session, and had to had to terminate.
Yeah.
It hasn't been indicated to Mr. van Lochrenberg when, or if indeed at all, he will be called back to complete his
There is an
testimony.
intention to give him an opportunity to complete. Mr. Franklin has been reminding me about that outstanding issue. So there is an intention. Of course, we're trying to wrap up, but it has not been forgotten. And the intention is to find some time for him to complete.
Right. Well, that does give us some comfort.
Yeah, yeah. No, certainly there is that intention, yeah.
Because there are two aspects, two distinct aspects of Mr.
Yeah.
van Lochrenberg's evidence, one of which is relevant to Mr. Moyane, but the
Yeah.
other is in a completely different stream.
Yeah,
And he was requested, after he testified on the previous occasion, to submit further evidence not related to SARS per se, but rather related to the SSA
yeah,
and its intervention.
yeah. I do remember
and
that.
that is being led
Yes.
through Mr. Pretorius' stream, as I understand.
Yeah. I do remember that when Mr. van Lochrenberg was giving evidence last time when he was finishing, there was an indication that there was quite some evidence that should be placed before, I can't remember whether it's law enforcement agencies or SARS, of matters that were known to him, but he could not deal with them because they remain classified or something to that effect. And I encouraged him to place that before the relevant authorities.
Yes. I don't want to preempt that evidence at all, because
Yeah.
it's not, in effect, it remains embargoed.
Yeah, okay.
But there are one or two points where there is a crossover.
Yeah, okay.
And it would certainly be comforting to us to know that Mr. van Lochrenberg will have his opportunity in relation to both aspects, the completion of his SARS evidence and then his testimony in relation to that. But I'm not asking you for a ruling in relation to that.
No. All I can say is that there certainly is an intention that he be given an opportunity to complete the evidence that he did not complete. Obviously, the evidence leader will have a clear idea of what remained.
Yes.
So if it's fine with you, I would like to give you the last 5 minutes if you have any further submissions to make.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, I'm in somewhat of a dilemma because there are two avenues open at the moment. The one is to request you to pend this argument, and then to allow me to take it up, if warranted, after the evidence leader has.
I'm quite happy to do that if you would prefer that to say.
I'm not sure what I prefer.
Yeah. Well, you have very little time to make up your mind.
Yes. The obvious other point is to do what I've been briefed to do, and that's ask you to make a ruling now. The difficulty with asking you to make a ruling now is that I'm not privy to what the evidence leader has prepared for today. And I don't know what areas he intends to traverse. And it may put the evidence leader in a bit of a tricky position if he suddenly to find himself in a position where he has to quickly involve himself in matters that he anticipated would be dealt with in cross-examination on behalf of Mr. van Lochrenberg.
Well, I can decide for you. Let's defer it. But so that you can take a view after Mr. Moyane has finished his evidence, take a view whether you pursue it or not, and then we can take it from there. But we are not contemplating, I'm not contemplating that there would be much to say after that in terms of argument, but you might have one or two points to make arising out of the evidence that Mr. Moyane would have given as to how it impacts on the application.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you, Chairperson. I think that that's probably the sensible way to do it.
Yeah.
And at least by the time that the evidence is complete, I'll have clarity.
Yes.
As to whether there are points still to be dealt with, and they will certainly, I imagine, be somewhat narrowed down rather than a broad canvas.
Yeah.
There might be one stream or one maybe even just a few questions.
Yeah.
On a
No, that's
particular
fine.
aspect.
That's fine.
All right. Well, then I'll take my leave for the moment.
Yeah.
I'll return to my place.
Yeah.
And I'll listen very carefully.
Yeah. So this application is stood down until Mr. Moyane has finished his evidence.
Thank you, Chair.
All right. Let me have the other application.
Good morning, Chairperson.
Good morning, Mr. Furu.
Chair, in light of the route that the prior application has taken, I ask that this application also stand down to the conclusion of the evidence leaders leading Mr. Moyane.
No, I think that makes sense.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. This application is also stood down until Mr. Moyane has completed his evidence. Thank you. Okay. Good morning, Mr. Moyane.
Good morning, Chair.
Thank you for availing yourself to give evidence. You did say that you would come and you would give evidence and you would avail yourself for questioning. So thank you for availing yourself.
Thank you very much, Chair.
Mr. Franklin.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, would it be of any assistance if I were to give my indication in relation to the applications to cross-examine now, just very briefly?
Yes, I think it might help, yeah.
Thank you. In brief, Chair, the attitude that I take as evidence leader is that I would support both applications for the simple reason that it will facilitate the completion of the testimony of Mr. Moyane. It will not, as matters are planned, imperil the likelihood of finishing or not. At the end of the day, we only have a day, as you know. The preparation has been done on that basis, on that assumption, perhaps whether it was correct or not. If I'm entitled to cross-examine on the topics, then I take it it is permissible for my learned friends to likewise do so. You as Chair, of course, would not allow a duplication in respect of topics that I have already covered. So in due course, when you make a final decision on it, I would certainly request that the applications be granted on that basis, and on the basis and understanding that there will be very limited and focused cross-examination on particular topics.
If you can, I would like you to cover everything that should be covered, because that's what normally happens. Obviously, if you have covered everything that should be covered, and if leave to cross-examine is granted, then the cross-examination can focus on really important aspects. So rather than that areas are left out when you question. So if you are able to, I would like you to cover everything, but obviously if I grant leave to cross-examine, then I would take it that should facilitate things.
Thank you, Chair.
Yeah. But if there are challenges, you would let me know.
Thank you.
Okay. Yes.
Mr. Moyane to be sworn in.
Yes. Please administer the oath for affirmation.
Please state your full names for the record.
My name is Tom Swabi Moyane.
Do you have any objection to taking the prescribed oath?
No.
Do you consider the oath binding on your conscience?
Yes.
Do you solemnly swear that the evidence you will give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? If so, please raise your right hand and say, "So help me God."
So help me God.
Thank you, Mr. Moyane.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, Mr. Moyane.
Good morning, sir.
You can confirm that you are testifying today pursuant to a subpoena which was served on you on the 19th of May of 2021?
Yes, I do, but I would like to address the chair before I do.
Yes. Okay. No, that's fine. I think your counsel had indicated in chambers that you would make a request to address me in an opening statement for about 10 minutes or so. Please do so.
Thank you, Chair.
I'm sorry, I haven't seen what you are going to read. I always prefer to see it in case it implicates people who have not been notified. You shaking your head to suggest that it doesn't implicate anybody. Is that right?
That's right, Chairperson.
Okay, all right. That's fine. And you can keep your mic on throughout, yeah.
Chairperson, thank you very much for your welcoming address to me this morning, which I found a bit contradictory to the letter that I received, firstly addressed to me, summoning me to this meeting. I did convey to the lady who called me on Wednesday, considering that at all material times, I and the team, my legal team, presented ourselves when we were requested to do so. Through my counsel indicated that I'm willing to assist the Commission at all times so that you can discharge your responsibilities in the manner that the Constitution allows you to. But Chairperson, I'd like to put it on record, I found the summons as confrontational. From my first affidavit deposed in September 2018, at all subsequent submissions, I affirmed my willingness to support you, Chairperson, and the Commission, and my counsel has also on several occasions affirmed this position in the appearances that we made. The question that begs to be answered is why the summons this time around and the role of the law to be used against me as a criminal. The man who dragged my name into the Commission has under oath admitted that there was no evidence and it relied entirely on gossip. I incurred legal expenses for such a gossip. During the first cross-examination of Mr. Godan, my legal counsel was given an hour, and it looked very odd to me, considering that this man, the minister, had made serious and unfounded allegations leveled against him. He was given limitless time so that he can rant and cast my name and reputation. Let me address my appointment as a commissioner of SARS. I was appointed as a commissioner for SARS on the 25th of September, 2014 by the former President Jacob Zuma. Chairperson, let me deal with my removal as a commissioner. My removal from SARS was a well-orchestrated process. On Saturday afternoon, on the 16th of March 2018, I received a call from my office that the President, Mr. Ramaphosa, wishes to meet with me on Sunday, the 17th of March 2018 at his private residence at 2000 hours. I duly confirmed my attendance. Later that afternoon, I saw an article on News 24 penned by Rene Bodnochis and Sam Kokeli Bloomberg titled, "Expect to soon see new leadership at SARS, Gordon, close quote." In this article, I'm reading as Gordon is quoted, I quote, "It's out there in the public domain that leadership team has lost credibility and the time for change, it should be sooner rather than later, close quote. Further down the line, the article alludes, I quote, "Moyane's removal from SARS is imminent and will be put to cabinet," close quote. This was based on a Johannesburg-based Business Day newspaper report on 14th March without saying where it got the information. The meeting between me and the President on Sunday evening, ominous timing indeed, confirmed in not so many words this plot. There was no discussion about my performance or lack thereof between me and the President. The President, Mr. Ramaphosa, simply implemented the projected outcome as per the article had already outlined. Lo and behold, on March 18, 2018, I was suspended. Let me address issues around Judge Nugent's inquiry and report.
Chair, I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
I'm not certain what the purpose of this so-called opening statement is. There is no provision for a witness to give an opening statement. Of course, it is perfectly permissible for a witness's counsel to place matters on record, but it appears that Mr. Moyane now wishes to use this opportunity to traverse a number of topics and give his version on it. With respect, that is not permitted. He is here to be led, and his evidence is to be placed before the Commission, and he can give his answers in the course of that. But he has begun with an attack or criticism of the Commission for having summoned him. Then he has followed with an attack on Minister Gordon, and then it appears he wishes to criticize the President for removing him as Commissioner. None of that is legitimate, with respect, and I would object to him continuing with such a statement.
Well, I have allowed people to make what some have called opening remarks or opening statements. And in regard to that, they have touched upon some of the issues that they would be giving evidence on. I think my assessment is that Mr. Moyane has probably used maybe about 5 minutes and is left with another 5 minutes. I would allow him, as long as it sticks within the issues that relate to him and SARS. But just bear in mind, Mr. Moyane, you promised me that it won't implicate anybody. Okay, all right.
Chair, as far as I'm concerned, up till thus far, I have not implicated anybody.
Okay, let's continue.
Chairperson, Judge Nugent was instructed to follow the script. He met secretly with Mr. Godin to discuss the outcome. Close quote, get Tom out as soon as possible. In that commission, I was belatedly invited, and I was a cause of the establishment of that unit. It is common cause, Chairperson, that on the 5th of October 2014, just when I was just been appointed, media reports and expose I convened an urgent ESCO where I requested that I be taken to confidence about this matter around the rogue unit. Shared the outcome with the minister, who was quite upset about the developments as they impacted negatively on the institution and the reputation thereof. 2 weeks later, a week later, on the 12th of October 2014, another explosive expose was published. I met with the minister, Nene, in the evening at OR Tambo at airport. He was extremely angry and annoyed about this report. I informed him that I now had a sense that I have an ESCO members that are shielding each other over the wrongdoing that was happening within the organization. And at the time, I cannot be able to rely on their advice and cooperation. The reports by Mzilikazi and Peter Lampedi, investigative journalists, were insightful and worrisome on the reputation of the organization. The report by Advocate Moeti Kanyana on the 14th of August into multiple allegations of impropriety within the organization was deemed inconclusive, and Advocate Moses Kakani panel was appointed on the 5th of September 2014 by Ivan Pillay, immediately submitted a report that indicated that there was a prima facie evidence of the existence of the rogue unit. The establishment of the unit without taking the requisite statutory authority was unlawful. Prima facie evidence that the unit may have abused its power and resources by engaging in activity that reside in the other agencies of government in which it had no lawful authority. Chairperson, I want to confirm here that I literally walked into the middle of a storm that has been brewing over a long time. I had the opportunity over time to meet some of, if not all those members who were mentioned. All members of this unit were issued with fake identity cards signed by the commissioner then, who shielded them from doing their illegal activities in the event they were caught out. I have a copy of such a document that indicates they had fake documents. This is a copy, Chairperson, which I'll give it to yourself.
Well, I'm not sure about that part, Mr. Moyane. That might be implicating people in wrongdoing. That part of what you have said. But continue.
Well, that was given to the team as an extra in my previous affidavit.
Okay.
Chair, I would like to indicate that the rogue unit members did approach me, and two of them, and submitted where they said that there's a criminal past which they thought only death will save them. The confession was elaborate and detailed on how they backed, intercepted, listened, and video recorded activities of the NPA offices, leaders of the SABs and Scorpions in Pretoria, in a project codenamed Sunday Evening. These colleagues, though instructed by Ivan Pillay to collaborate with the conspiracy leaders, whose name is mentioned in the recording, who provided the funding and the operation, a sum total of 1 million was used for this operation. The transcript of this confession was provided to the Commission for ease of reference. Perhaps, if these were provided to the media in an audio form, South Africans will be able to wake up to the euthanized lies that were daily fed. It is in this commission that Mr. Godin admitted during cross-examination under oath that this unit existed after fruitless attempts to deny and shield its existence. Chairperson, I was dragged into this state capture meeting, and there was no substantiated evidence to provide evidence to that effect. It is said that I laid charges against Mr. Godin to the police and the Hawks, and falsely so, that I was in pursuit to the ends of the state capture, and more specifically in the execution of conspiracy, masterminded by the former president to remove him from the position of the minister, which I deny emphatically, and which was denied here in your presence. I'm extremely aghast at this brazen attempt to place me as a proponent of state capture and tarnish my reputation and image. To suggest that I influenced the former president to fire him as a minister of finance is just preposterous, because I have no authority or power over the president. He appoints and dismisses ministers at his will. Quickly, Chairperson, during my tenure at SARS, for 3 consecutive years, I was able to deliver and perform sterlingly, and these are tabulated as follows. During the 2014-2015 financial year, SARS collected 906 billion against a target of 979, indicating a surplus of 7.3 billion. This translated to 9.6% growth from the previous year, and tax to GDP ratio was 25.7%. During the 2015-2016 financial year, we collected 1.69 trillion against a target of 1.69.7, indicating a surplus of 200 million, 8.5% growth from the previous years, and the tax to GDP rose to 26.2%. During the 2016-2017 financial year, SARS collected 1.144 trillion against a target of the same number, which means we're on target. And this indicated we had a growth of 6.9% from the previous year, and the tax to GDP was 26.1%. And finally, just when I was removed as a commissioner of SARS, the result was as follows. 2017-2018 financial year, SARS collected 1.216.6 trillion against a target that had only missed the target by mere 700 million. Chair, in conclusion, I want to affirm here that I want to indicate that on the 29th of September, when I was Commissioner for SARS, I had a very funny call from Mr. Godin, instructing my team and my PA to come to him to be congratulated as a commissioner. But due to the activities that I had at the time, I could not do so. Lo and behold, on the 23rd of October 2015, at the medium-term budget policy statement, which was to be delivered by the former Minister Nene, Mr. Pravin walked into the National Assembly and approached the box which the DGs were sitting. He was shaking hands with everyone. When it was my turn, I stood up and extended my hand. He passed me and greeted everybody. When all was done, he came back to me and he said, "Tom, it is not done." In a visibly angry tone.
Just repeat that.
Yes.
Yeah, please repeat what that
Tom,
sentence.
yeah. When he had done the greeting of everybody, he came back to me and he said, I quote, "Tom, it is not done," in a visibly angry tone, and my response was, "What is it that is not done, sir?" And his response was, "Why didn't you return my call or contact me?" I was shocked. Little did I know that this episode was to repeat itself on the 15th of December 2015, a day after his reappointment as the Minister of Finance by the former President Jacob Zuma. I received a call from his office that the minister wanted to have a one-to-one meeting with me at SARS around 10 o'clock. I waited for him outside my office together with the Deputy Minister, then Mcebisi Jonas. Upon his arrival, I extended my hand to greet him. He shouted at the top of his voice, in full view of staff that were gathered outside, "Don't shake my hand, shake the DM first." Again, whom I had already completed the formalities with, I contained my disbelief and anger at being treated as a leper. He said to me, "Did you not know that I'll be coming back?" Close quote. This was confrontational and abuse of power at the highest order, and I was not going to accept and allow to go unchallenged. He moved away momentarily to attend to a phone call. I expressed my displeasure to Mr. Jonas, and I told him in my own language that angephindi ani endla leswi kambe. Literally translated, Deputy Minister, he will never again repeat this type of attitude. And I said to him, I'm disappointed at you, DM, for keeping quiet in view of such unbecoming behavior of the minister. I had to indicate I had a criminal relationship with Mr. Gordon from the time he returned at SARS. He was always shouting, and I finally retaliated in kind when his uncouth behavior showed itself again. The recorded telephone transcript provided to the Commission are irrefutable proof that the man is avowed racist and was condescending. In conclusion, Chairperson, I appeal to the Chair that in your report, to pronounce and make a determination that Mr. Goran spoke from gossip and jealously blinded by his racist attitude towards me. Mr. Goran must not make his problems with the former president my business. I thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Moyane. Just for clarification, I allow these opening statements, opening remarks, simply because I see them as part of the people or witnesses getting a chance to put across the main points of what is of concern to them or their side of the story. So I've allowed others, so you have been allowed as well. Okay, we can continue. I think the one thing which I should say something about, and maybe Mr. Franklin might or might not have something to say about, is the issue of a summons. I think you expressed concern as to why you were served with a summons in circumstances where for a long time you had made it clear that you would make yourself available to the Commission. There have been other witnesses who have expressed the same concern. One of them is Mr. Brian Mlefe, because he said also he was surprised that he was served with a summons in circumstances where he had made it known to the Commission that he wanted to come and give evidence. The reason may well be that because we have time constraints now. If we don't serve you with a summons, although you may be willing to come and assist the Commission, that date might be a date where you prefer to do something else. And then we don't want to get in lengthy discussions about dates, so that you would only ask for another date if really there is something serious that prevents you from coming on that day. So it probably has nothing to do with thinking that you would not come. It's a question of trying to use our time properly and making sure that unless somebody really has a serious and valid reason, they would come. So that would be my thinking in terms of the summons. As I said earlier on to you, I do know that you have made it clear in your affidavits before this Commission and through your counsel that you will avail yourself to give evidence and to be questioned on the matters that the Commission is looking into. Okay, Mr. Franklin.
Thank you, Chair. If we could then proceed, Mr. Moyane. You were the former Commissioner of the South African Revenue Services, who we will describe as SARS. You can confirm that?
Yes, I was.
And you held the position from September of 2014 until October of 2018, a period of just over 4 years.
Correct.
You have deposed to a number of affidavits before the Commission. I'd like to go to some of those, please. You will have around you a number of bundles, and I'm going to refer you to various bundles and ask you to look at them. And no doubt you'll
somebody will assist you, Mr. Moyane, to find those files.
Yes, the first one I'll ask you to look at, please, is SARS Bundle 03.
You might wish to preserve space because you don't have a lot of space there. You might wish to move some of the files. Yeah, okay.
Please will you turn to page SARS 03012. And just for your orientation, whenever I refer to page numbers, I refer to the black numbers on the top left-hand side of the page. Do you have page 012? Top left.
That should be the beginning of your affidavit. I think Ms. Moyane can help him. It's page 12, black numbers at the top left corner of the page. It's written SARS-03-012.
Oh,
Do you have that now?
I'm not familiar. Okay.
Good. That is a witness statement of a Mr. Thomas Moyane. That is your name, is it?
Yes, it is.
Please turn to page 36 of the same bundle. There is a signature at the bottom of the page. Is that your signature?
It is.
Do you confirm the truth and accuracy of the contents of this affidavit?
Yes, I do.
Chair, may I ask that it be admitted as Exhibit WW6, the witness affidavit of Mr. Thomas Moyane?
The affidavit of Mr. Thomas Swabihi Moyane that starts at page 12 is admitted as an exhibit and will be marked as Exhibit WW6.
Thank you, Chair. Can I ask you, please, Mr. Moyane, to keep that particular volume and that particular affidavit open in front of you, because I will be referring to it on a number of occasions. I would now like to identify certain further affidavits. Chair, it does not appear to me necessary that they be admitted as exhibits, but just for the witnesses' orientation and yours, may I place these on record?
Okay.
Mr. Moyane, you probably don't remember the dates, etc., but if you wish to look at any of the affidavits that I'm about to list, then please let me know. Firstly, you brought an application to cross-examine Minister Gordhan in December of 2018, correct?
Yes.
And you filed an affidavit in founding in that application on the 13th of December 2018. I'm going to give the reference. That is in application bundle N for November 3, and it is from pages TSM 3 to 15. It's not necessary for you to go to each of them unless you want to. I'm just going to identify them.
Mm-hmm.
You recall a founding affidavit in that application?
I'll take it that you're direct me in the right direction.
Thank you. Then, on the 1st of February of 2019, you deposed to a supplementary affidavit in the same proceedings, and that too is in application bundle N3. The page is TSM 260 to 268. That's the second. The next is the replying affidavit on the 5th of March 2019. That's also in application bundle N3, page TSM 690 to 709. And then the fourth, as I have it, is dated the 15th of January 2020. That is in application bundle N3, capital A, at page TSM 944 to 974. Now, returning, Mr. Moyane, to the witness affidavit, I'll call it the witness affidavit, that I first pointed you to and which you have open in front of you. I just want to ask you some preparatory questions in relation to that. Can you confirm to the Chair that at the time you deposed to that affidavit on the 3rd of March of 2021, you had received so-called Rule 3.3 notices that you were implicated in alleged wrongdoing by Mr. Williams of Baines, you recall that?
I recall that.
And Mr. Simmington of SARS, you recall that?
I recall that.
And Mr. van Locherenberg, a former employee of SARS, you confirm that?
Yes.
And you were given the relevant parts of their respective affidavits for you to consider, correct?
Correct.
And you took those allegations into account when compiling your witness statement in order to answer those allegations as best you could. Is that correct?
Correct.
And that's what you have done in your witness statement. You have various introductory comments, and then your understanding of state capture, and then you have separate parts of the affidavit in which you deal with allegations made against you by Minister Gordon firstly, and then also Messrs. William, Simmington and van Locherenberg under separate headings. Is that correct?
Correct.
And you're aware, Mr. Moyane, that all three of the people that I have mentioned who have testified here under the SARS workstream, that's Williams, Simmington and van Locherenberg, have testified in this commission on the 24th, 25th and 26th of March. Can I ask, did you listen to their testimony when they were giving it on live streaming?
I was not well, as you could see that there was a document that was given here, so there was no way that I could hear. I did not follow their
So you did not follow. But subsequent to that, the transcript of their testimony has been uploaded to the Commission's website. You're aware of that?
Yes, I am.
And I take it you have read those transcripts.
I had the opportunity to.
All right, and then all three of those gentlemen also provided statements to the Commission, and I understand that the statements of Mr. Williams and Mr. Simmington have been uploaded to the Commission's website, and have you similarly had the opportunity to read those statements?
Yes, I have.
All right. If I could then ask you to look at your witness affidavit. Firstly,
and that's Exhibit WW6.
That's correct.
Yeah.
I will call that your witness affidavit, Mr. Moyane. That's what you've called it, so you know what I'm talking about. Would you look, please, at paragraph 7, firstly. And there you say, the main purpose of these submissions is to support my strongly held assertion that at all material times, 1, I was never involved in fraud, corruption, money laundering and similar crimes. 2, I am certainly not guilty of state capture as I understand the term or as it is generally understood. And 3, on the contrary, I was privy to information which is likely to implicate some of my accusers in some activities which may or may not fall under the general rubric of state capture. That's what you have said. And then please look at para 72 on page 36, right at the end of the affidavit. You've said there, and I quote, I therefore humbly request that any allegations of state capture, corruption or fraud, brackets, or any other crime, close brackets, levelled against me by these accusers must accordingly be specifically rejected, and that a finding to that effect be made in the Commission's report. That will go a long way towards restoring my human dignity which has been maliciously tarnished, most probably for the sake of political expediency. Do you stand by those statements which you made in your affidavit?
Yes, I do.
The essential message that you convey to the chair is that you maintain your innocence and you deny any involvement in state capture. Is that correct?
Correct.
Mr. Moyane, you will know by now that the stance that you take, in which you maintain innocence and a denial of any involvement, is in stark contrast to what the SARS witnesses have said. You understand that? They say
I'm not
differently.
sure what the SARS
Well, when I talk about the
said.
SARS witnesses, I'm talking about Mr. Williams, Mr. Simmington, and Mr. van Lochrenberg. You said you read their testimony.
Yes.
And at places in their testimony, they make allegations against you in relation to your conduct at SARS, which are negative and which they say demonstrates that you were involved in state capture. You're aware that that's what they allege?
Yes, which I refute.
Yes.
Just to clarify, Mr. Franklin, although you include Mr. Williams when you say SARS witnesses, of course, he was not from SARS. It's just that he testified under the SARS workstream.
Thank you for the clarification, Chair. I've simply used that label for the witnesses who testified under the SARS workstream.
Yeah.
But you understand the point the Chair is making. Mr. Williams was a former Bain consulting employee. You know that?
Yes.
So that's the first group of people. And then you are probably aware, and I'll take you to this, that Bain Consulting, I'll simply call them Bain, have themselves publicly said in South Africa that their role in SARS was a disaster and that you yourself had a particular agenda. I take it you read those statements in late 2018, which were put out in the media?
Yes, I read it. It's just unfortunate that Bain has to make that statement. Just unfortunate.
I'm sorry, I didn't
I'm
hear.
sorry, just repeat.
I'm saying it's unfortunate that they made that statement.
All right, and then the third category that I would refer to is the findings in the Nugent Commission final report, which was issued in December of 2018. You've referred to it in your opening statement. I take it you have read that report and you have seen what findings were made against you.
Yes, it's his findings. I don't think that there's any merit because I was not part to it.
So
As I indicated that it was a well-orchestrated process. I was not party to it. It was a decision taken by Nugent and his team.
As you testify, Mr. Moyane, if you can try and face me,
Okay.
so that, because I'm the one you are telling the story. Okay. Okay, of course.
Thank you.
The evidence leader is asking the questions. I'm not saying don't look at him. So, all right.
Yes, at this stage, I simply wanted to establish that you have read that final report and you confirm that you have, correct?
I was not given the final report.
But I thought you said you'd read it.
Yes, but the report was not given to me.
Right,
Just
but
two
not,
things, yes.
despite it not being given to you, you got access to it and you read it.
No, I did not have time to read it because I felt that it had nothing to do with me. It was a meeting that, in an inquiry that was done outside my scope.
Mr. Moyane, unless I'm mistaken, a few moments ago you said you did read the report. Did you or did you not?
No, I read the reports of the two gentlemen, the three people who came here and testified. Van Lochlenberg, Williams, and Flock.
Okay, I'm sorry. I just want to make sure I understand. Are you saying that you read what some of the witnesses who testified
Yes.
said about what the report says.
Yes.
You did not read the actual report.
No.
Okay.
Just so that there's no misunderstanding about that, Mr. Moyane, are you telling this commission that as you sit here on the 26th of May 2021, you have still not read the final report dated the 11th of December 2018 of the Commission of Inquiry into Tax Administration and Governance by SARS, which we call the Nugent report? Is that what you're saying?
That's what I'm saying.
And the interim report, did you read that one?
No, I didn't
You
read it.
also did not read that one?
Yes.
You were the sitting commissioner of SARS at the time.
Just one sec, Mr. Franklin. I thought that I understood when I was dealing with your application for leave to cross-examine Mr. Godang, I understood that your position was that either you were intending to take that report on review or you had already launched a review. I'm not sure which one. So based on that, I would have assumed that you had read the report. That was a misunderstanding.
Chair, let me clarify. Thanks for bringing that into my attention. When the report was finally, whatever the interim and the final report was made, I met with my counsel. And they gave me a resume of what the report is all about.
Yeah.
I, as Tom Moyane, did not read that.
Okay. Okay. No, that's fine.
Right. I had highlighted for you that on the one hand you have said that you are innocent, and on the other there is this body of evidence against you, and therefore it's necessary to explore this, please. So if I may just concentrate firstly on Bain. You are familiar with the company Bain Consulting?
Yes, I do.
They were appointed as a service provider to SARS firstly in January of 2015, correct?
Correct.
And then their contract was extended on various occasions thereafter in 2015, 2016 and 2017, and that they performed services for SARS for approximately 3 years in total, correct?
Yes.
And this was all while you were Commissioner of SARS, correct?
Correct.
You said to the chair that you recall that Bain made public statements in 2018, and I want to take you, please, to one of those, and I'm going to ask you, please, to take out SARS Bundle 01. You have that? Please turn to Annexure AW45. That's at page SARS 01-252. Just to orientate you, Mr. Moyane, these are annexures to Mr. Williams's statement.
You say SARS 0?
01.
Mm-hmm.
Page 252. You have that?
Yeah.
Thank you. That is a public statement issued by Bain on or about 17 December 2018. So this is what the consulting company put out into the public domain. You are free to read the entire document if you wish, but I just want to highlight certain parts of it. On the first page, 252, on the left-hand side of the page, this is how they open. The past few months have been a highly challenging and sobering period for Bain South Africa and Bain globally. Through public testimony and documents submitted at the Commission of Inquiry headed by Judge Nugent, it has become painfully evident that the firm's involvement with the South African Revenue Service, SARS, was a serious failure for South Africa and SARS, and clearly for Bain too. The Commission's hearings and the final report published last week have laid bare the disarray in which SARS now finds itself, with both morale and performance severely damaged. Now, just stopping there, what's your reaction to that conclusion by Bain? What do you say about that?
Chair, as I said before, I said it's an unfortunate statement because the work that they've been able to do during my tenure and the time they were given this opportunity, the results are very clear. That it was through their counseling and assistance that we have been able to achieve the results that we're able to report here to yourselves. So I don't see why this could be seen as a serious failure when the results are glaringly clear to everybody that it is through the work that they've done with us that we achieve this sterling work. So, as I said, it's unfortunate, misinformed.
All right, so you say that's a
Hang on 1 second, Mr. Franklin. Try and not be too far from the mic, because I think as you speak, some words don't come through and we want them to be recorded. Okay. Continue, Mr. Franklin.
Thank you. So I understand you to disagree with that conclusion. Is that correct?
I do.
Then please turn to page 254. On the right-hand side, there's a heading, Absence of Public Sector Protocols. Do you have that?
Mm-hmm.
The following is read. Is said, only a small proportion, minus 5% since 2010, of our work in South Africa is for the public sector. As a result, there was a lack of strong public sector capability or understanding of public sector protocols. And this is the important part. In hindsight, there is evidence to suggest that Mr. Moyane was pursuing a personal political agenda at SARS. Proper due diligence on Mr. Moyane may have identified this risk. So once again, there is a specific allegation that is made publicly by Bain, which was the service provider during the time that you were Commissioner, against you. And what is your reaction to that allegation?
Preposterous.
I'm
That
sorry?
in hindsight, there is evidence to suggest that Mr. Moyane was pursuing a personal political agenda at SARS.
Yes.
I think they could have done much better to provide clear aspects as to what this political agenda is all about. It's too general.
So you disagree with it?
Completely.
Right. In fact, if one looks at your witness statement, back to that one, which I hope you have handy, at paragraph 66.
Chair, with your permission, Mr. Franklin, let me address you to this.
Yeah.
I find it very hard to
You're speaking to the paragraph.
Yes, to this paragraph.
Yeah.
In hindsight,
Yes.
there is evidence to suggest that Mr. Moyane was pursuing a personal political agenda at SARS. SARS is a revenue service, not a political institution. Clearly defined tasks and responsibilities. So it would have been very clear for them to provide that type of line of thinking as to what political agenda that I was pursuing. I was dealing with taxpayers. I was dealing with business, captains of industry. So there is no time for politics at SARS. We deal with technical issues that relate to the lives of South Africans, especially from a financial and fiscal aspect. So that statement is just unfortunate also.
Okay.
All right.
Franklin?
I had asked you to look at your witness statement, paragraph 66.13. It appears at SARS 03-034.
66.13. Got it.
All right, and here, having dealt with...
I'm sorry, is the page 66?
No, it's 34, Chair.
Page 34. Yes, you can continue.
Thank you. I want to read just part of this paragraph. You can read the whole lot if you wish. It starts, however, I can assure the Commission that there was nothing untoward or irregular about Bain's subsequent appointment. Indeed, I can state without any fear of contradiction that the Bain/SARS relationship yielded the best results ever recorded in the entire history of SARS. So, stopping there, Mr. Moyane, I understand you to say that far from this being a disaster for the country and for SARS and for Bain, in fact, it was a great success. Is that correct?
It was a great success, Chair, but let me underpin the following. In my opening statement, Chairperson, I did indicate that during those financial years, we produced sterling results, which are historical. And therefore, I find it very strange for somebody to come and say here that it was a disaster. It was ahistorical, and everybody accepted that the team at SARS had worked and put the shoulder into the work. Now, to make these spurious allegations that we didn't, we made great strides to put South Africa where it's supposed to be. And these figures are not thumb-sucked. And these figures are not from Moyane. These are figures from the organization, and these were accepted by the National Treasury and the country. So it's not numbers that were crunched somewhere for expediency of the particular person or individuals here. I therefore stand by my statement that that relationship was beneficial to the country.
You see, what is apparent, Mr. Moyane, and what is, of course, of interest to the Commission is the enormous disconnect that there appears to be between, for instance, what Bain said publicly and what witnesses have said in this Commission and what you maintain. You accept that there's a vast chasm between your version on the one hand and what Bain and the SARS witnesses have said on the other. You accept that?
I accept that because we're talking from different perspectives.
All right, then, as far as the Nugent Commission is concerned, could I ask you to look at the application bundle? I'm sorry, there's a lot of files and not much space. N3, application bundle, there are 2 files. Please look at the second file.
Which one?
N3.
Somebody must assist you. He will tell you, tell you again what the numbers are. Please just repeat the numbers, Mr. Franklin.
Sorry, Chair, there seems to be a problem locating that file, but we have an extra one for present purposes, and I will retrieve it.
Yes, okay. Are you managing with the space there, Mr. Moyane?
Will come right, sir.
Okay, all right. What's the page number, Mr. Franklin?
Thank you. It begins at TSM 448.
Yes.
488.
No, 448, Chair.
448. Yes, I've got it.
Thank you. You will see that that is the first page of the Nugent Commission report. You see that?
Yes.
And I wish to just put briefly certain of the conclusions that were reached by the Commission. Firstly, on page 451, paragraph 4 at the bottom of the page. Do you have that?
Yes.
Right, so under the heading, the terms of reference and the Commission's primary conclusions, in paragraphs 4 and 5, which I will take you to, the following is said. The conclusion we reach at the end of this inquiry is that there has been a massive failure of integrity and governance at SARS, and all else follows from that. What SARS was and what it has become is sufficient proof in itself that integrity and governance failed on a massive scale. And then in paragraph 5, I reported in my interim report that was brought about by at least reckless mismanagement on the part of Mr. Moyane. We have heard much evidence since then. What has become clear is that what occurred at SARS was inevitable the moment Mr. Moyane set foot in SARS. He arrived without integrity and then dismantled the elements of governance one by one. This was more than mere mismanagement. It was seizing control of SARS as if it was his to have. Now, were those findings brought to your attention?
Yes, they were.
And
May I comment on that?
Yes,
Yeah.
you may comment.
You may.
The conclusion 4, that there's a massive failure of integrity and governance at SARS. I dispute. We did put governance measures at SARS. Let me cite an example, Chairperson. On my first EXCO meeting on the 29th of September 2014, which was labeled familiarization meeting with EXCO, which means no business to be discussed, to understand who is who in the organization. Right towards the end of that session, one member of EXCO said, "Sir, Commissioner, would like to approve a pre-advance payment of more than 100 million to a company that is going to start work in 2014. That's flouting governance principles. You don't pay 3 years in advance for a work that is yet to be done. And I asked politely, what is it that merits such payment in advance? What if this company goes belly up? Sir, because we have had a discussion with this company for discounts. If we don't take them now, they'll go away. It's preposterous. And that was refused and rejected. So if this type of attitude is not advanced to say governance principles and processes must be followed, then you are running into an organization wherein things are not done properly. And I was supported by the audit, the head of audit, that it can be done. So to say integrity and governance, and then I ran this organization as my own, this report fails to understand the fundamentals of what management is all about. I don't take decisions unilaterally on my own. There was a collective here decisions were made, debates were made, were entered into. So as I said, I don't take this report as serious. It was a report that was prepared in order to tarnish my organization. It says he arrived without integrity. How could he determine that I had no integrity?
Thank you.
And he said, I dismantled the elements of governance one by one. And this was more than the mere management. It was seizing control of SARS. It was his, as if it was his to have. Chair, I can confirm here without contradiction. I ran a consultative organization where in everything that was discussed, it was put before the team for discussion and approval. So I never took a dictatorial position. All those who testified here, they should be able to talk the truth, but not cast aspersion. So I refute this type of report, and therefore that's why I said I did not take this report as serious, because it was mere rubber stamping, a decision taken in order to tarnish my image. That I worked without integrity, I worked without... Chair, I submit that this statement, any person who reads it will see that it's unfounded.
Right, we'll get onto some of the detail later. Then could I also ask you to look at page 47?
Oh, is this the convenient time, Mr.
Yes, thank you.
Let's take the tea break. It's 11:15. We will resume at 11:30. We adjourn. Yes, Mr. Franklin.
Thank you, Chair. I understand from my fellow evidence leader, Mr. Chaskelson, that there is something that he wishes to put on record at the Commission, and may I stand down while that happens?
Yes, that's fine. Mr. Chaskelson, somebody must sanitize the podium. Where is the person who normally does that? He's not here. Somebody will come to sanitize it just now. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, there has been coverage in the media overnight of a settlement reached by Transnet and McKinsey following McKinsey's commitment at this Commission to repay Transnet and SAA all of the fees it earned at those SOEs in contracts where it worked alongside Regiment's Capital. Now, on Monday, the Secretary of the Commission received a letter from McKinsey's legal representatives, Norton Rose Fulbright. I didn't refer to it on Monday or indeed yesterday because the settlement had not yet been made public. But with your leave, Chair, I would like to refer to it now.
Yes, you may do so.
And Norton Rose wrote to the Secretary, Dear Sirs, and it was written on Monday, during today's viva voce evidence by Mr. Paul Holden to the Commission, he referred to Table 73 of his statement and amounts paid by Eskom, Transnet and SAA to McKinsey. The evidence leader, Mr. Chaskelson SC, drew the attention of the Commission to the fact that McKinsey had repaid the amount in question to Eskom and had undertaken to pay the other amounts to Transnet and SAA. Mr. Holden was asked whether he had any knowledge of whether any other entity had likewise made such commitments. We are pleased now to advise the Commission and ask you to pass the information on to the evidence leader, Mr. Chaskelson, that Transnet and McKinsey have in fact entered into an amicable settlement agreement in terms of which McKinsey will be repaying to Transnet an amount of 870 million within the next few days. This amount is fully inclusive of all interest. Then yesterday, Chair, Transnet and McKinsey issued a joint press statement which reads as follows. It's date stamped 25 May 2021. Transnet SOC Limited and McKinsey and Company announced that they have finalized the settlement of the fees McKinsey committed to return to Transnet at the Judicial Commission of Inquiry in December 2020. The full and final settlement of 870 million includes the fees paid to McKinsey in respect to the projects undertaken with Regiment's Capital, plus interest. So, Chair, by the end of this week, McKinsey will have repaid to Eskom and Transnet all of the fees that they earned in contracts tainted by state capture with interest. These are the fees in relation to contracts where they worked alongside regiments at Transnet and alongside Trillion at Eskom. McKinsey has done that, Chair, as their statements confirm, because that is what a responsible corporate citizen should do. A responsible counsel should switch his phone off when he makes a statement like this. But the point that I would emphasize, Chair, is that if one goes to Table 73 of Mr. Holden's report, the amounts that McKinsey has repaid are less than 3% of the total amounts that are listed on Table 73. And the companies listed on Table 73 include some Gupta Enterprise companies from which we can't expect voluntary repayment, but they include a series of South African and multinational companies who are responsible for vast sums of money on contracts that were linked to state capture. And, Chair, those companies have now got Mr. Holden's report. And McKinsey has shown what a responsible corporate citizen does in these circumstances. I'm looking forward to seeing what those other companies do. Thank you, Chair.
We issued a media statement sometime last year, which was to the effect that at that stage, as a result of discussions that had been held between McKinsey and the Commission's legal team, you were leading that work stream. McKinsey had committed itself to pay, I think it was 650 million rand, I'm not sure, but that was not the final amount, because they were still to be, they were still going to look at issues of interest and so on. I guess that this amount of 870 million rand is now inclusive of the interest and whatever other monies they had not been finalized with them. Is that right?
Yes, Chair. In particular, the press statement and the McKinsey letter both make clear that it includes interest. Yes.
Well, once again, I think that even though it's not the Commission's mandate to have these amounts recovered, obviously that is what everybody in South Africa would like to happen. But I think that when some people criticize this Commission for the costs that have been incurred through its work, they remember that at least here is this one occasion where, as a result of discussions between a unit of the Commission and McKinsey, a substantial amount of money has been or will be repaid within a few days as a result of a commitment made to the Commission at the time. So this is 870 million rand. It might be a small percentage of the entire amount, but nevertheless it is quite something, I think.
Thank you, Chair. And I would hope that the other companies on that list are taking notice and that the 870 million may grow.
Yes, no, I would encourage the other companies on that list who also benefited from contracts that have been tainted to do the same.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Okay. Mr. Franklin.
Thank you, Chair.
Yes, we may continue.
Thank you. Mr. Moyane, before the break, you will recall that I had taken you to various findings in the Nugent Commission report, and you had disagreed with the conclusions that were set out there, correct?
Yes, I did.
I understood in the course of your opening statement for you to say that you were most unhappy and aggrieved that you were removed as Commissioner by President Ramaphosa. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And you said that no performance issues were raised with you, correct?
That's correct.
You do understand that the President was acting on a recommendation of the Nugent Commission to remove you. Did you know that?
I note what you're saying.
And that brings me to a topic which I'd like to deal with briefly in relation to your lack of participation in that commission. You know that the commission held hearings in 2018 and finally issued its report on the 11th of December 2018. And as is recorded in there, it heard evidence from some 64 witnesses, most of them, as I understand it, SARS employees or former employees. You'd accept that that is correct?
No, I won't say it's correct. I don't know how many people participated, but yes, there were people who participated.
Yes, but if the commission itself reports that there were 64 witnesses, you don't dispute that?
Well, it has no impact on me. I have no interest in that.
That's not what I asked you. If the commission records in its report that it heard evidence from 64 witnesses, do you accept that or not?
Why should I accept, sir?
And why should you not?
Chair, I think I need a protection. Why should I accept something
Let's put it this way.
Yes.
Do you intend making an issue of the numbers or not?
No.
No. Okay, all right.
That's what I said in the beginning, sir.
Yes. No, that's fine.
All right. In your replying affidavit in the application to cross-examine Minister Gordhan, I can take you to the actual page if you'd like it, but it's not necessary unless you wish me to. What you say in paragraph 43, and I'll give you the reference and we can come back if you'd like to see it. It's page TSM 702 in application bundle N3. But what you say there, you say, thirdly, I was denied the right...
I think he would like to
yes,
see
let
it.
me
Yeah.
see it. Yes.
Please get
Ms.
it.
Moyane, somebody will assist you, Mr. Moyane.
Bundle 3. Is that bundle 3?
Somebody will come and assist you. Just make sure you don't unduly increase the number of files that are there because he has got many already. So use the ones that he has got there. Okay, all right.
Yeah, that's fine.
Just to orientate you, Mr. Moyane,
Yes,
at
sir.
page 692, that's the start of your replying affidavit in the application to cross-examine Minister Gordhan. And I'm referring you to paragraph 43 on page 702. You have that?
I have that, sir.
Yes, you were dealing with, under your heading, misconceived reliance on irrelevant opinions of the SARS Commission. And in para 43, you said, thirdly, I was denied the right of participation in the SARS Commission, and subsequent to my lodgement of legal objections to its processes, I was legally precluded from such participation. Now, just stopping there, is that correct? Do you accept that you were invited to testify, but you chose not to?
Chair, I think if we read this correctly, thirdly, I was denied the right of participation. I think that should, if that is understood, I was not given an opportunity.
Just let me ask you again.
Yes.
Do you accept that the Nugent Commission invited you on more than one occasion to testify?
The Nugent Commission did not invite me.
Please wait until I finish my question.
Okay, my apology. I withdraw.
Do you accept that the Nugent Commission invited you to testify before it and that you declined to do so?
Should I answer?
Yes.
Yes, you may answer, yeah.
Once again, Chairperson, I put it on record, I deny that I was invited.
All right.
I did not receive any invitation.
Do you
did
know
not
whether
receive-
your lawyers received any invitation? Do you know whether your lawyers received any invitation from that commission?
Well, Chair, under record, I would not know now, but that question could be raised with them. But in the event they did, they would have informed me. Because when we went with Advocate Dalimpofu, Eric Mabuza, and I think Miss Advocate Suboko, we went there was an invitation on a particular matter. So I want to put it on record that a formal invitation to participate in the whole inquiry, I'm not aware of. I have never received it. It should have been directed to me also because I was an employee of SARS. I was at the center of what was being investigated. At the time, I had not lost. I was on suspension. So I just want to correct.
Okay, so the position, as I understand it, and you must tell me if my understanding is correct, is that you accepted that there was an invitation that was given to you either directly or through your legal team to come and deal with a specific issue at that commission. But you say you never received any invitation to participate in the commission as a whole. Is that correct?
That's correct, Chair.
Yes. But you say you are not aware whether your attorneys or your lawyers received any such general invitation, but you would have expected that if they had received it, they would have told you, and they didn't tell you.
No.
Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Sorry?
I beg your pardon to interrupt my learned friend and the witness.
I can't hear you. I think speak closer to the mic.
I beg your pardon for interrupting you, my learned friend and the witness. If I may just speak from memory from that Nugent commission. I think what had happened is because it was running at the same time as the disciplinary hearing Mr. Moyane attended, the attorneys were themselves, I suspect the attorneys wrote a letter to the commission and asked the commission to hold the processes where Mr. Moyane is concerned because at that moment, the feeling of the legal representation was that the commission was traversing the same issues as the disciplinary committee. In response to a
I'm sorry. I think it's because the mic is not close to you. I hear some of the things you say. I don't hear others. Oh, okay. I think now it's going to be better. Please start afresh.
Okay. I beg your pardon that I interrupted
Yeah, please start afresh, yeah.
On the issue that Mr. Moyane is trying to remember, I just need to try and assist from a point of memory. Chairman would be aware now from the reports that Mr. Moyane at the same time was attending a disciplinary hearing, and at the same time the Nugent Commission was also running. I think the attorneys then wrote to the Nugent Commission and asked the Nugent Commission to suspend their work in respect of Mr. Moyane because the feeling at the time was that the commission was traversing the same issues as the commission. In response to that letter, I think then the invitation came.
The general invitation.
Correct. I do speak under correction. I don't have those papers with me.
Okay. Mr. Franklin, please switch off that mic, yeah.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Mr. Moyane, I'm surprised to hear what you say. I'd like to take you to the Nugent Commission report, please. And I would ask you to look at TSM page 465. I understand that the file before you...
Maybe let me put this to Mr. Moyane, and maybe that's what you are going to, Mr. Franklin. Did you understand what your counsel was saying? She was saying there was a general invitation that was sent to your lawyers by the commission, but your legal team took a certain approach to it, namely to request that because there was a disciplinary hearing taking place at the same time, the Commission should not deal with the same issues. I think that's what she was saying. You understood that?
Apologies, Chair. Yes, I understood that.
Okay, all right.
All
Mr.
right.
Franklin?
Thank you. So you do accept that you were invited to attend, but you declined to do so on a particular basis?
If I go with what my counsel is saying, I want to concur with what she said.
Good. Could I ask you then to look at the part of the Nugent report that I referred to under the heading, the response to the Commission of the former Commissioner of SARS? Do you have that?
On which?
In which bundle is that?
It is in...
Is that the Bain statement?
No, it's one of the application bundle in 3.
Oh, SARS bundle 3.
No, it's the application bundle in 3.
Oh.
Is it page
I've got it,
445?
yeah. I've got it, yeah.
Thank you. You have that, Mr. Moyane?
Yes, which page is that?
So, paragraph 45.
What page?
And you'll see on page 465. Chair? Thank you. Right, and what is recorded by the Commission is this in paragraph 45. The former Commissioner of SARS, Mr. Moyane, kept away from the Commission from inception, appearing on one occasion only, and then only to disparage and attempt to derail the inquiry, which has continued relentlessly since then. It is clear that Mr. Moyane does not have and never has had any intention of accounting for what occurred during his tenure at SARS or of confronting the evidence the Commission has received. And then 46, Mr. Moyane was pertinently notified each time public hearings were held, but neither he nor any representative on his behalf was ever present, except on the occasion I have mentioned. Indeed, on that occasion, he protested at evidence being heard in his absence, but then left the hearing before the next witness was called. He was pertinently asked whether he wished to respond to evidence that had been given in public, much of which was damning of his management of SARS, but he declined. Prior to the submission of the interim report, he was afforded the opportunity to make submissions on why it should not be recommended that he be removed from office, which he spurned. Instead, he remained in the shadows, defiantly spewing invective at the Commission through his own mouth and through that of his attorney. His conduct throughout the inquiry fortifies our view that he is and was not fit to be Commissioner of SARS. The correspondence between the Commission and Mr. Moyane's attorney in that regard is Appendix 2. So, were you aware of that particular section of the report?
Chairperson, with your permission and with your respect, the chairperson did ask me a few minutes ago as to whether I concur with my legal counsel. Explain to yourself here that there were two things running concurrently, and therefore the allegation that I spurned, I rejected, I refused, does not have merit, because it's clearly stated in what has been said here. And I remember very well, Chairperson, subject to correction, that some of these things were taking place when I was appearing to Advocate Karim, am I right? It was Advocate Karim?
The chairperson of the disciplinary inquiry.
Yes. Now, to say that I was sitting in the shadows, defying spewing effective at the Commission, I want to say it's for the first time I'm speaking here. For the last 3 years, Moyane has been silent. I've never issued a press statement, never have I addressed any media. So this statement has no merit whatsoever.
You'll see that the Nugent Commission referred to an Appendix 2, and that you will find also in the bundles before you. Chair, it is application bundle N3, I think it's N3C, at page TSM 1740 to 1777. 1777. Do you have that?
Can you repeat the sub number, sir? I have Appendix 2.
Thank you.
Yes, I have the Appendix 2.
Appendix 2, I've got.
Thank you. Mr. Moyane, that's a bundle of correspondence between the Commission and your attorneys, Mabuza attorneys. You can page through it to see that. I'm not going to waste time by going through all of these letters, but what I want to put to you, that it is quite apparent from these letters that you were given specific, and when I say you, I mean through your attorneys, specific personal invitations to attend and testify at the Commission. Would you accept that?
I'm looking at the documents, sir. If I may ask, what comment do you want me to make, sir?
Yes, I understood you to accept, on the basis of what your counsel put, that you were invited to testify.
I see the correspondence.
Yes.
Yes.
You were also given the transcript of the hearing from time to time and asked to respond. If you want to look to specific documents, look at page 1753, for instance. You see that letter? In
yes,
the first
I see
paragraph.
the letter.
I write to inquire whether your client wishes to respond to the evidence given at the Commission's public hearings, a transcript of which is attached for your convenience, or wishes to present evidence on any other matters relevant to the inquiries. Should he wish to do so, he is entitled to make arrangements to meet with counsel for the Commission.
He's invited.
I'm sorry, should
You
he wish...
entitled, he's
I'm sorry.
Invited.
Should he wish to do so, he is invited to make arrangements to meet with counsel for the Commission to enable counsel to assess the evidence he wishes to present, to identify in what respect and to what extent there is a basis for the evidence, and to secure documents that might be relevant to the evidence. So that's self-explanatory. That is an invitation, and also to testify, and also an invitation to respond to the evidence which had been given thus far, not so. You agree?
I note what is contained in the document.
Yes, but you agree with my question?
Just repeat the question, Mr. Franklin.
What's the question, sir?
You agree that that is an invitation to you to testify and to make comments on or respond to the evidence which had been given thus far, and you were given a transcript of the evidence for that purpose?
Yes, I take cognizance of that.
Right. You didn't take up either invitation, did you? You neither testified nor responded to the evidence that had been given up to that point, correct?
Correct, but I think there was an explanation as to why we could not attend and why we had so many things that we had to attend to as a team.
Then I want to...
I'm sorry, was that explanation that there was a disciplinary process going on at the same time?
Correct, sir.
Yes. Do
Yes.
you have a recollection of from when to when the disciplinary hearing went, or you, in terms of months, not necessarily the days or the month?
I would like to defer this to counsel because I don't want to mislead the chair.
No, that's fine.
We'll be able to come back to you on that as to when.
Okay,
yes.
Okay, that's fine.
Yes. Then, if I could refer you to a further letter. You may or may
maybe,
not recall.
but I'm sorry, Mr. Franklin, but I can ask this question. You did say earlier on that if your lawyers had received an invitation, you're sure they would have told you, now that you have seen the correspondence addressed by Judge Nugent to your then attorney, does that jog your memory that maybe they did tell you about it, or is your recollection that they didn't tell you about it?
No, my memory is now drawn to the fact that they did tell me and we were busy with something.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Franklin?
Thank you. And do you recall as well that the Commission wrote to you on the 7th of September 2018, and I'm now referring to page 1756 to 9. It wrote to you to say that the Commission is required to submit an interim report to the President by no later than the end of September 2018. You will be aware from the transcripts that have been furnished to you of the evidence that has been given thus far in public hearings and of documentary evidence in the public domain, being a report from KPMG commissioned by your client and the records of court proceedings initiated by your client. Your client has been invited on more than one occasion to respond to the evidence but has failed to respond to those invitations. The Commission is considering reporting to the President that the evidence discloses the facts summarised below, which have not been contradicted by any submissions received or by contrary evidence. And then there follows a summary of that evidence. And in the last paragraph on page 1759, Judge Nugent says to your attorneys, should your client wish to make submissions on why the Commission should not report to the President on the terms summarised above, he should do so in writing by no later than 21 September 2018, so that his submissions may be considered before the Commission reaches its conclusions. So you see, you were invited specifically to comment on the Commission's proposed findings. You see that?
Yes, I do.
And you didn't take up that invitation either, correct?
I think this question has been answered in the previous submission, as I said.
Now, just to answer the question, you didn't take up that invitation, did you?
We didn't, yes.
And then you know that your counsel appeared, and I think you were there too, on the 29th of June 2018. You were given an opportunity to make objections to the inquiry, and that is what your counsel did on your behalf. You recall that?
On the 29th of June.
Yes, the date is not important, but that is the date, 29th of June 2018. I'm sure you can't
And my
remember
counsel rejected it.
That is the two of you, well, maybe not the two of you, but he's saying on that date you and your counsel appeared before the commission, that commission. He's asking whether you remember that, to raise objections to the commission.
Well, I can't recall, Chair.
You can't recall. Okay. But you do recall being there with your counsel at the proceedings of the commission on some occasion?
Yes.
Yes. You recall what the purpose was of your presence on that day?
Chair, it's 3 years down the line.
Remember?
3 years down, I can't recall.
Okay. No, that's fine.
Well, let me remind you, the Commission issued a ruling in relation to the objections which you raised. It's dated the 2nd of July 2018, and it appears at page TSM 436, still in the application bundle N3. Annexure PG2.
Is that a different bundle?
Yeah.
It's in my second file, Chair. I'm not sure if it's in the same file for you.
But what is it? Then maybe I will know.
It's Annexure PG2 to Mr. Gordon's affidavit, and it's page TSM 436.
Have you found it?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll do without. Hopefully I can follow.
Thank you.
Franklin.
Thank you, Chair. That's a ruling which the Commission made on the 2nd of July, as you can see from page 447. And what the Commission did was to refuse all of the rulings and relief that you sought. And to establish what it is that you sought, please look at paragraph 13. You have that on page 439.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And what is recorded is this: before turning to the submissions that were made, it is convenient to deal with the rulings that were sought. I was asked to make 5 rulings that were expressed as follows. And there are the various rulings. The first of which is a discontinuation of this commission, alternately a stay of its proceedings pending the outcome of the disciplinary inquiry. And then there were various others which you can read through if you wish. Does that jog your memory?
Yes, it does.
So the objections you raised were dismissed on the 2nd of July, but you still didn't appear at the Commission thereafter. We know that, correct?
Correct.
And then, if I could refer you to the last letter that I wish to refer to, and that is at page 1772, dated the 12th of November 2018, still in Appendix 2.
Yeah. Oh. Paragraph?
Which bundle is that? Is it still one of the application files?
Yes, it is. It's one of the application bundle, and
we need to have all 3 of us, well, of course, counsel as well, who are representing other people. At least the 3 of us must have the same
yes,
bundles, so that it's easier when you say bundle, so and so we can find it. I think the application files are the ones that seem not to be numbered or given a particular letters to identify them.
Yes,
Maybe,
Chair, that is correct. I'm sorry, we've established during the course of this testimony that there seems to be a dissonance.
Yes,
the page numbers are the same, but the file numbers are not.
Maybe for convenience, what we should do is we can do one of 2 things. We can take a short adjournment, and when I come back, you are able to say, let's mark that one this, let's mark that one that, so that you just need to say bundle whatever, then we all can find it easily. Or if it's convenient to you, you can postpone asking questions relating to it until after lunch and during the lunch break. That can be sorted out.
Yes,
I'm easy, whichever you prefer.
Thank you, Chair. I think it would be preferable to do it during the lunch adjournment so that there's time. I would simply ask one, in relation to one more letter, which I understand the witness has.
Yeah, okay.
Which is at page 1772, and it runs to page 1777. You have that, Mr. Moyane?
Yes, I have.
Dated the 12th of November 2018, and this is a further letter from the Commission to you.
Oh, by chance I have it in front of me too.
Oh, good.
Yeah, okay.
And this is another invitation to you, Mr. Moyane, to consider the potential findings which are summarized in the letter and to respond to them and to say why those findings and recommendations should not be made. You see, right at the end of the letter, it is said, your client is invited to furnish written submissions to the Commission as to why the above findings and recommendations should not be made. Should he wish to furnish submissions, he should do so no later than 23 November 2018. You see that?
Yes, I do.
And you would accept that you didn't take up that invitation either?
Yes.
So, Mr. Moyane, the position we have then is that a special commission of inquiry was set up in order to investigate SARS, but it had to proceed to issue its final report without the benefit of the testimony of the sitting commissioner. Correct?
Yes.
And I think the question that I have, and perhaps the Commission have, and perhaps the public may have, is why did you not simply tell your story?
Why did I not tell my story?
Yes, why didn't you go before the Nugent Commission and refute the testimony that had been given by the 64 witnesses who had been, most of them, highly critical of you? Why didn't you go and tell Judge Nugent that what they were saying about you was untrue?
Simply put, and unequivocally so, it was very clear from our perspective that there were two things running parallel. And I needed to clear my name from a disciplinary perspective so that when I go to Nugent Commission, we had a very clearly defined platform upon which we can argue matters. And I think my counsel did write a letter to say that issues that they wanted to be clarified in the letters that were served between the two institutions. We're not talking about the water under the bridge, but yeah, a decision had been taken. That inquiry took place in the background of the fact that much as it took a decision that the President must make a decision, my fate had been decided on the 18th of March 2018.
Well, Mr. Moyane, that's an extraordinary statement to make with respect. Are you saying the whole Commission was a sham?
I'm not putting words in your mouth. You may determine it the way you want.
No, I'm asking you.
I never said so.
Well, why would you not then present yourself as the sitting commissioner and give the Commission the benefit of your testimony in relation to the events that they were investigating? You were the prime witness, surely.
My opening statement did indicate, Chair, I think I need to reiterate, that it was impossible for us to be able to deal with these matters. Two parallel processes taking place, and also there were issues that we're not happy with, and those matters were not addressed and given attention to. We did say that there was conflict of interest by one of the members, I think it's Katz, and other members of the team, so we wanted them to recuse, and those matters were not attended to.
Yes, but the Commission heard your objections and ruled against you. Once it had ruled against you, why then did you not tell your story? You realized that the Commission was not going to uphold your objections. Were you not very concerned to tell the truth so that the Commission would not ultimately make misguided findings?
I don't want to ask you a question, sir, but it's a rhetorical question. With your permission, Chairperson.
Mm-hmm.
What truth was the Commission seeking? The matter of the fact that I ran that organization to the best of my ability. The situation changed dramatically when there was a new minister who came into the organization. That's all what's happened. There was nothing that I hid. There was nothing that was illegal that I committed in that organization. What truth? There was nothing that I was hiding. Everything that I did was above board.
But that's not what the witnesses said. and you were told what the witnesses said, and you were given the transcript of what the witnesses said, but you chose not to refute it. That's what I'm exploring. That's what the Commission wants to understand. That's what the public wants to understand. Why didn't you use the opportunity to tell the truth?
In other words, Mr. Moyane, Mr. Franklin is saying, once you saw the transcripts of what the witnesses were saying, if you took the view that those witnesses were being untruthful about you in what they were saying, one would have expected that you would want to go to that commission and tell the commissioner, this is not true, here is the correct picture, here is what happened, and you put your side of the story before the commission reaches findings. He's saying, why didn't you choose to do that? Because then the commission would have had the benefit of your side of the story, and then it would have been in a better position to decide what was true and what was not true.
Mr. Chairman, I beg your pardon, sir, before the witness answers. My learned friend's earlier question was that 64 witnesses testified at the commission. And I think as he proceeds, the impression is then made that all 64 witnesses should have or may have implicated Mr. Moyane.
Okay.
I don't think that is true. So if the question is asked, can it just be rephrased? Yes.
Okay, no, that's fine. Mr. Moyane, you have had my...
Yes, I heard your line of thinking, yes. Chair. And I thank you for elucidating this matter. But, Chair, I would like at this point to reserve my comment on this matter. And the Commission may take a position on it.
Okay, Mr. Franklin.
Mr. Moyane, reserve it until when? You are testifying before the Commission now. The Commission has asked you a question. Do you not want to answer it now?
No, I don't want to answer it.
But I'm asking you to answer it.
I'm saying I'm not answering it.
Well, it's not really for you to decide.
I have no comment.
So you don't...
I have no comment. I think not answering is it's a little bit unfair. I have no comment.
Yeah, I think that's good enough.
Yes.
Because it's been clarified exactly what your question was, and it called for an explanation why he didn't go to the commission and put his side of the story. He doesn't have a comment.
Thank you. You did earlier, in response to the chair, deal with the question of your intention to review the Nugent Commission report. And can you confirm that you said at a point in time that you intended to review and set it aside, or bring an application to court to review the Nugent Commission report and set it aside?
Yes.
But you didn't ever proceed with that?
Well, it's not that it might not take place.
So,
it does not necessarily mean that we preclude that opportunity to take place.
You haven't pursued a review application, correct?
Yes. Yes.
All right, could I then ask you to go back to your witness statement? You've probably forgotten where to find that now, with all the files around you, but it is SARS Bundle 03.
Yes.
You have that?
I have it, sir.
One of the topics you deal with is your appointment as Commissioner. And could I ask you to please turn to your statement, affidavit, at paragraph 66, starting at SARS 03031.
I'm sorry, please repeat the page.
It's SARS Bundle 03. It's page 031.
Page 31. Okay, that would be page 31.
You have that, Mr. Moyane?
Which, yes, she did indicate which one? Which part?
Paragraph 66.
Yes, 66 I have.
Good. So that's from your statement. And I just want to go through certain parts of paragraph 66, please. Here you set out your version of events regarding how you were appointed as SARS Commissioner. And you say you want to do that to put at rest the absence of any possible state capture motives on my behalf. Correct?
Which line are you referring to so that I can
Sorry,
follow?
paragraph 66, the opening words.
Where it says, I nevertheless wish. Is that where you are, Mr. Franklin?
Yes.
Yeah. Right at the top.
Yeah,
of,
I see it now.
yes,
Chairperson.
yes, okay.
All right, I want to just go through the chronology, please, of certain of these events. Firstly, you said sometime, probably in the second half of 2013, the position of SARS Commissioner was advertised in the mass media. Correct?
Yes.
Then you say, in or about early September 2013, I submitted a formal application. I did not do so at the suggestion or instigation of any person. By then, I was already a veteran civil servant, having held several key positions in the civil service. You confirm that as well?
Yes.
Then you say in 66.3, at some point in the very early part of 2013, the President informed me, if I could just stop you there, is that former President Zuma?
Yes.
The President informed me in strict confidence that he intended to appoint me to the position of SARS Commissioner for which I had applied. He explained that his intention should be kept under wraps, as he only intended to formalize it if he was still in office after the general elections, which were scheduled to take place in May of 2014. Is that correct?
Correct.
And then, point 4, I fully understood that the decision was obviously conditional upon the happening of 3 political or constitutional events, namely 1, that the ruling ANC would win an outright majority in the 2014 elections, brackets, this was not a fait accompli due to dramatic changes in the political landscape at that time, those brackets. 2, if the ANC was successful, as generally expected, that it would field the sitting president as its candidate in Parliament, brackets, this was almost guaranteed, barring a natural catastrophe, those brackets. And 3, the ANC candidate would garner sufficient votes in Parliament to be the next president, brackets, this was dependent on the first issue, i.e. the outcome of the elections, those brackets. And then 5, indeed, I kept the information to myself and only shared it with my wife, whom I trusted implicitly. I'd like to just pause there, if I may, and just ask you to confirm, if I understand on your version. So you and President Zuma knew in very early 2013 that you, Mr. Moyane, would be appointed commissioner, provided the conditions set out in para 66.4 were complied with. Is that correct?
Yes, taking into account that President Zuma accounts the head of SARS.
Just repeat that, please.
Taking into account that he was the one who was going to appoint the commissioner.
Yeah, he was the appointing authority.
Yeah, he had the authority to do so, yes.
Yes, but otherwise you confirm the correctness of what I've put to you.
Yes.
So the two of you knew many months in advance of the country that you would be appointed as commissioner so long as the ANC won the election and Mr. Zuma got a second term. Correct?
Yes.
And you planned accordingly, as I understand your statement, and let me refer you to paragraph 66.9 on page 33. All right, you talk about low-key preparation and the like, and then you said it was in this context that the presentations referred to and attached by Mr. Williams in his affidavit were made. So am I correct to say that once you and the former president had had this discussion, you effectively planned with your appointment in mind? Is that correct?
Yes. But let's go back a bit. Prior to that, I had already applied for this position. So when this was brought to my attention, then I had to think on my feet as to how I'll be able to attend to this particular position and familiarize myself to the full extent of what the opportunities are going to be and in relation to the organization I'll be deployed to.
Going back to paragraph 66, there seems to be a little bit of some inconsistency between or in paragraph 66.3. I think what you have said is that it was in the very early part of 2013 that the president informed you that he intended to appoint you as SARS Commissioner, is that right?
That's correct, Chairperson.
But in 66.1, you say sometime probably in the second half of 2013, the position of SARS Commissioner was advertised in the mass media. And then in 66.3, you say the president told you this, that he intended to appoint you. You say to appoint you to the position of SARS Commissioner, for which you had applied. I take it that there's a
yes.
Yeah, you had not applied
Yes.
when he approached you.
Correct,
That's
sir.
right. Yeah.
That's correct, sir.
You applied later. Okay, all
Yes.
right. Thank you, Mr. Franklin.
Just to get that sequence, are you saying that the president told you this and then you applied, or the other way around?
No, he's saying he was approached by the president in the very early part of 2013 when he informed him that he intended to appoint him as SARS Commissioner. But the advertisement of the position happened thereafter, probably in the second half of 2013, and then he applied. Is that correct, Mr. Moyane?
No, let me correct, sir.
Yeah,
I
okay,
think
okay.
Mr. Maybeth is correct. Yeah.
Okay. Yes.
What happens is that the first part is correct.
Mm-hmm.
I had applied in the early part, second half of 2013.
Mm-hmm.
Let me explain. I had already left correctional services.
Mm-hmm.
That was around September the 13th when I applied, submitted.
Mm-hmm.
The president told me after, it was just coincident, I had already applied, unbeknown to me, that this would happen by the president. I had already applied. The post was applied, and if you go to the records of SARS, it was closing around the 12th or 13th of September. Around there, I had already applied for the post. So the 66.3 is not properly crafted.
All right, so with that correction, as I understand your evidence then, it was, am I correct, shortly after you had applied that you had this discussion with the president?
Yes.
The only thing, of course, with that is that the first line of 66.3 appears to be quite clear that you say it was in the very early part of 2013. Can you see that?
Yeah, that's why I'm saying there's an error that should be in the later part of 2013.
Yes.
After. It was after September.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Franklin.
All right, thank you. Perhaps just to give some more certainty to the chronology, Mr. Gordon, Minister Gordon, made a witness statement. It's in bundle N1, and it's at paragraph 33, page 14. I just want to refer you to that, please.
Which page?
14. Do you have paragraph 33, Mr. Moyane?
Yes, I do have, sir.
Thank you. And you can read that for yourself, but there the minister says that Mr. Magashule resigned as commissioner on the 12th of July 2013. Mr. Pillay then took over in an acting position. I'm just summarizing. And then the commission, the position of commissioner was advertised in late 2013, and the ministry received, I think it says plus or minus 120 applicants, correct?
Yes.
Do you accept that that is correct?
What is correct, sir?
What he says there.
Well, that's what he says, that the minister received 120 applications. Yes.
Yes, that Mr. Magashule resigned on a particular date, Mr. Pillay took over, position was advertised in late 2013, and the ministry received approximately 120 applicants. You accept that?
Yes, I think mine was amongst them.
Yes. All right. So the position is that...
Well, you talk in your affidavit, might not matter, you talk in your affidavit about the advertisement having been probably in the second half of the year, 2013. Mr. Godan seems to talk about applications having been received already while he was Minister of Finance, and he would have ceased to be Minister of Finance or he would have ceased only in 2014.
Correct.
May.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
all right. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, no, I see that he actually says also the advertisement of the post was in the latter half of 2013. Yeah. Okay.
Yes, and if the chair or the witness wishes to look at it, the advertisement is at Annex 4, page 77 of that same bundle, and it has a closing date of 13 September 2013.
Okay, okay.
Does that sound about right?
Which is the last day
That's the
that
day
you're
I
talking
submitted,
about?
yes.
Yeah. Well, except that if that was the last day to submit applications, then it can't be, okay, I may have misunderstood you. So you say the president spoke to you after you had submitted your application?
That's correct.
Okay,
Yes.
all right.
Yes.
Right, so, Mr. Moyane, am I correct at this point in time, when you applied in 2013, you had no experience in running a revenue service or any experience in matters of taxation, is that correct?
You said, did I have experience in running a revenue service?
Yes.
No. I
And-
never had experience of running a revenue service.
All right. The President, let me just take you rather. Yes. at the end of paragraph 66.8 on page 33, you said, like some of the previous appointees, including Mr. Gordon, and although I felt well qualified for the position, I did not have any experience in taxation, but I was a generalist manager or senior executive in the public sector. Correct?
Which page is that, sir? My apologies.
So that's page 32 to 33 of your witness statement.
Okay.
I guess to be more precise, Mr. Franklin, is 32 and 33 of the bundle.
Yes.
Because 32 and 33 of the statement will be
Yes.
other pages.
The chair is quite correct.
Yeah.
You have that?
Refer me to which?
I
have the bundle now.
Top
Yeah.
of page 33 of
The
the
black
bundle.
numbers, 32 and 33 of the bundle that has got your witness statement. You've got it?
My apologies, Chair.
Yeah, okay.
Yes, I just direct your attention to that because you say there you did not have any experience in taxation, but you were a generalist manager or senior executive in the public sector. You were up against 120 odd other applicants. Don't know who they were, but I presume there were some very deserving candidates. Do you know why the President chose you?
Firstly, I'm an economist. In whatever position that I held that had aspects of economics, I put my mind and my attention to what was required of that responsibility. So I did not see any difficulty, but I would learn in the process and also familiarize myself with the environment.
Well, you have just said you are an economist. May this a convenient time to cover what your qualifications were or are?
Yes, I'm an economist.
Yeah.
I did my junior degree. I did not complete my studies in 1976 because of the political upheavals at the University of Turf. Then I left the country in November of 1976. I then was accepted in Mozambique. I was requested then by the Mozambican government and senior party officials at the request of the African National Congress to be seconded to the largest poultry farm in Mozambique and run that during the difficult times of Mozambique, given the fact that when independence was granted to Mozambique had close to 60-70% of illiteracy and they had a very low level of qualified and experienced people. Not that I was amongst the head of advanced in terms of what I did not know the job, but there was this understanding that you understand the whole sector of economics, a bit of it, you'll be able to assist because we have people on the ground. But I made it very clear that my assistance to the Mozambican government will be limited because I'm a member of the African National Congress. As long as they want me to be able to assist, I'll do so. But my primary objective is to study. And I agreed with the Minister of Agriculture and Rural Development in Mozambique that at the end of 1977, I'll go back to university. I started from scratch. I did my economics in Mozambique. I completed my bachelor's degrees in economics in Mozambique. I was then
Was that
again...
BCom? Was that BCom?
BCom, yes.
Yes.
BCom economics.
Okay.
Then I was then again requested to be transferred and work with the Mozambican government as the head of the cashew nut sector, which was the cornerstone of the economy because Mozambique at the time was the world leader in cashew production. To secure that sector that was devastated by the war, I worked. By 1985, I was made head, as a foreigner, head of the department that dealt with the restructuring of the cashew nut sector, supported by the World Bank and the African Development Bank. I transformed together with a team into a well-running institution in Mozambique. And in 1991, just before we came back, I was seconded to the government of the government of Guinea-Bissau, attached to the Ministry of Rural Development, also to deal with the challenges that they had. When I completed that, I came back. So I had a number of positions that I occupied.
Okay.
Yes.
Mr. Franklin?
Yes, thank you. I would really just wanted to understand, for the Commission's benefit, what particularly qualified you for the post of Commissioner of SARS. I understand your background as an economist and the various positions that you had, but do you know why President Zuma thought you were the person for the job?
I might not have been able to understand what was in his mind, but institutions that I led, in whatever capacity, I led them in good stead. Secondly, I want to put on record, I went to study at London School of Economics, and I did my intermediate microeconomics certificate, and I did further studies in South Africa at various universities. So I think in his mind, the fact that I was able to meander through the various sectors of of institutions in South Africa, I have the capacity. I ran the government printing works as a CEO. I'm the one who produced the first top passport in South Africa, the passport that all of us have here. I went to correctional services, transformed, and then I think my track record speaks volumes about myself. I can't say what I did, but I think I had the capacity to learn and be able to be part of the team to do what was required within that sector.
Right. This affidavit, which was filed on the 21st of March of this year, as far as I have been able to see, this is the first time you have said publicly, please correct me if I'm wrong, that the President told you in advance that he intended to appoint you so long as these conditions in paragraph 66.4 were complied with. When was that, or was that ever made public before this affidavit?
Come again now, I'm aware. Yes, yeah. What's the question again, sir?
You have said in this affidavit that the President told you, in strict confidence, that he intended to appoint you in the position of SARS Commissioner for which you had applied. Correct?
Yes.
That revelation, was that made public at any stage before this affidavit in 2021? I'm just not aware of it. You might be.
Public by the President?
Or you? Or
no, it was not made public by the President.
Let me ask this question. When Mr. Godin gave evidence before the Commission, I think it must have been his first appearance and dealt with his term of office as Minister of Finance, he said that he had initiated the process that should lead to the appointment of a new commissioner, the advertisement, and of course, we just looked at the paragraph where he said 120 applications were received. His evidence was to the effect that when he spoke to the President about the process, the President said something to the effect that, I don't want to put words into Mr. Godin's mouth, but my impression was that the President was not interested in the process of advertisement because he wanted to exercise his authority to just appoint whoever he considered to be the person he should appoint. My impression from Mr. Gordon's evidence was that the president would not have used any of that process or those names and so on. Now, if that is so, then it may well be, I'm wondering about your application, but may well be that the president had identified the person that he thought was suitable and which happened to be you, and he was to appoint that person and not necessarily get involved in the process of considering other candidates. Are you able to say anything about this?
Chair, the question is very difficult, but I'll try to give a sense.
Yeah, you might not be able
yes,
to.
Yes.
Yeah. Basically, what I'm asking is whether, to your knowledge, you were the result of a competitive process. In other words, whether the president selected you among others that he had considered. Now, you may or may not know the answer to that question.
Yes, I think you've just got the words into my mouth correctly. So I would not know as to whether there was a number of people that he was considering.
Yes.
And in the process applied his mind that this is the person that I want.
Yeah.
But secondly, Chair, we do not know as to when the discussion between the President and Mr. Gordon took place.
Yes.
Considering, of course, the point that you are raising, that there were about 120 very competitive people.
Yes.
So we don't know the time frame.
Yeah.
Certainly, that to me was not an issue that was discussed between me and the President.
Yeah.
His rationale and the thinking resides with him. I think he could answer it if he was to be come here and say what was the rationale.
No, that's fair enough. What you do know is that you had applied for the position as well.
That is 100% correct.
Yeah. Okay, all right. Mr. Franklin.
Thank you, Chair. Then if I could continue with this chronology with reference to paragraph 66 of your affidavit. Please look at paragraph 66.6. You said that you kept the information only to yourself and your wife. And then you say, during a follow-up visit to the President to discuss the matter, I happened to find him in a meeting with the Chairman and CEO of Telkom in the presence of the Managing Director of Bain, who introduced himself as a Mr. Masoni. Just pausing there, are you able to put a date to that meeting?
I can't put a date and the month. I think it was 2014, could be, because bear in mind the application was in September. So it was the beginning of 2014, so I can't put it.
Would it have been after you had submitted your application?
After I submitted, yes, submitted my application. So.
And do you know whether it would have been after the President had confided in you?
Yes, it was after the President had confided with me, yes. That's why I was going to see him.
Yes.
He called me, yes.
Okay.
All right, as we shall see later, according to Bain, the two of you met, that's you and Mr. Masoni, sometime in October of 2013. Would that sound around the right time?
Where is that?
I'll come to that, but I'm just telling you that that's what Bain says.
Date and
You're not
the
sure?
month, yes, yeah.
All right. As regards Bain, you recall Mr. Masoni? You remember Mr.
Yes,
Masoni?
I know him, yes.
You had extensive dealings with him, and he was the lead person for Bain in South Africa during the time that you interacted with him at SARS. Is that correct? And he gave evidence on one occasion at the Nugent Commission, but not again. So he did testify at the Nugent Commission. You know that.
I would assume that he did, yes, if it said he did testify.
Right. At a point in time, you told Bain as well that you had been earmarked by President Zuma at the time for the post of Commissioner of SARS, subject to the election victory and Mr. Zuma getting a second term. Can you confirm that?
Not to Bain, to Mr. Masoni.
All right, sorry,
Yes.
to a specific individual, Mr.
Yes.
Masoni.
Yes.
All right, so let's just look, please, at SARS Bundle 01. That is the bundle which contains the witness statement of Mr. Williams, together with its annexures.
Have you mentioned the page, Mr. Franklin?
No, not yet, Chair.
Okay.
Yes, I'd like to direct you to please to Annexure AW67, page 420. I'm sorry to do that to you. It's in fact not the right one. Please look at page 470, 470. That's Annexure AW86 to Mr. Williams' affidavit. You see that?
Yes.
And that's an email from Mr. Masoni to his colleague, Mr. Franzen. Do you remember Mr. Franzen? From Bain?
Are you on page 471?
No, 470. There's a reference to Mr. Franzen, Fabrice Franzen.
Are we still on the same WW1, AW471 or 470?
Are you looking at the top
SARS
left-hand
SARS
page?
Bundle
Or top
1.
left?
SARS Bundle 1.
Okay.
You have it?
Yes. Yes.
There are 4 separate emails. Please look at the last one. Mr. Franzen says to Mr. Masoni, Ciao, just wanted to check how your, inverted commas, big meeting, close inverted commas, went yesterday. Take care. And then the response from Mr. Masoni is, thank you, Fabrice, it went very well. SARS is a go right after the elections. So just pausing there, you would accept that at least by this date, that's 4th of April of 2014, Bain were aware that they were going to be appointed to SARS. Do you agree?
I'm not sure as to where the inference is, because he says, Chow, just wanted to check on your big meeting went yesterday. Take care. Where the appointment as people were going to assist us. I don't see it here. Where is it?
All right. Do you have any idea what he means when he says SARS is a go right after the elections?
I don't know. I don't know what was in his mind. Yes, I can see where it is. Yes.
All right. Would you accept, on the basis of the testimony that you've given thus far about Mr. Zuma earmarking you for the position, and you then meeting with Bain and telling Bain that news, would you accept that you, President Zuma, and Bain all knew many months in advance of the rest of the country that you were going to be appointed as Commissioner as long as the ANC won the election?
Well, correction, not President Zuma, myself, and Bain.
Mr. Moyane.
Yes. So Mr. Moyane at that time, he knew, because I spoke to him in strict confidence. So it's not the whole of South Africa knew.
Yes. So it was only, in fact, Mr. and Mrs. Moyane, President Zuma, and Moyane and Moyane who knew this. Is that correct?
Yes.
Thank you. Is that a convenient time?
Let's take the lunch adjournment. It's about 1 minute to 1. We will resume at 2 o'clock. We adjourn.